We're creating this vicious cycle then where we don't feel like as leaders we have time to coach and develop our teams or give them space because we now have all the responsibility of all the doing. How do we slow down and not take over the doing, but instead put our energy towards creating the learning environment so that people have the support? So all your team members have responsibility for different things that they need to contribute towards your ultimate scope of responsibility. One of the most challenging things for leaders to figure out how to do is how to balance accountability with holding people responsible for getting something done without then being a micromanager. And in fact, if we can step away from both of these, it's going to be so much more effective. So when leaders can really be clear on what's the outcome that's needed and then make sure that their team members have the support that they need to get there. And so checking in periodically is okay, but it's when you're stepping in and taking over the work or doing all of it or constantly, checking in like every second or is not helpful. So how do we give people that authority by being clear on this is your responsibility, show me your plan, creating some sort of visual system so that we know that there's tracking, and that we've created a process where your team members know they can come to you and should come to you with periodic updates, and especially to let you know if things are on track or off track, so that you as a manager can step away from that anxiety of not knowing where the status of work is and hold you back from then jumping in and being a micromanager. And I like to call this being more of a macro manager. So how are you as a leader looking at the bigger picture, right? So all your team members have responsibility for different things that they need to contribute towards your ultimate scope of responsibility. So how are you creating clarity and connection on what each team member's responsibility is for, how it connects to the purpose of the bigger organization, and then how are you creating systems that allow that feedback to happen and your team members know that they can come to you for support as needed. So you're not then jumping in and taking over the doing for your team members and then feeling like that you're micromanaging them as well. So you can have accountability and ensuring that things are happening without you stepping in and having to be a micromanager. So macro management over micromanagement. One system that I've seen be really effective for leaders and team members alike to ensure that there's visibility to the status of work is just creating a simple visual system. So what are different deadlines or milestones that have to be reached? And then having either a daily check-in if that's appropriate or a weekly check-in with status reports on, what the progress that we're making towards that goal, or even breaking down work into smaller chunks so that we know there's progress. So it's not just we're only looking at the outcome, but what are the process measures and the milestones that are being monitored and talked about? So how do we make that visible? So at a glance, we can sort of see if work's on track or off track. And then how are we creating the routines of a set time and place to be checking in on the status of work so that you're not just jumping in at these unexpected times that could feel more micromanagey to your team members. So making sure that you have a process for regular periodic check-ins and how you're creating some sort of visual system to extract, especially if it's knowledge work, extract that into a way to know if we're on track or off track and not just looking at the end result, the outcome, but the different steps we need to have to get there. In the moment or under stress, it sometimes can feel easier or simpler to sort of take over somebody's work, kind of like, oh, they're not doing it the way that I want them to, or I already know how to do this, and they're kind of learning their way forward and then just taking over and doing it. So kind of becoming that micromanager who's actually not even managing anymore. It's just like taking over the doing. The challenge is that we not only burden ourselves with all the doing, we're creating this vicious cycle then where we don't feel like as leaders we have time to coach and develop our teams or give them space because we now have all the responsibility of all the doing. And so it becomes this vicious cycle. I guess I got to tell everyone what to do or take over the doing myself because it's easier. I don't have time to give them space to learn. I don't have time to ask questions, or I don't have time for these things. So how can we slow down and be aware that when we're doing that, we're actually creating more overburden for ourselves, but also we're not creating organizational capability. So you're going to be stuck in this trap sort of in perpetuity. So the way to get out of the micromanaging trap is to really make sure that people understand where we need to go, the challenges and the goals that need to be achieved. And then how do we slow down and not take over the doing, but instead put our energy towards creating the learning environment so that people have the support systems so that they can learn their way forward and achieve those goals and the problems without you taking on the responsibility of it.